So just as a recap, because we are going to move on from the immigration issue, and it is a hot button topic, but so here in Florida, so if you recall, DeSantis had been like battling, it's like two rams. You have Governor DeSantis versus the legislature, and here in Florida, we're kind of like butting heads on this immigration law and enforcement and such. And though it may not have been everything DeSantis wanted, he definitely won. But then now you have, beginning this past Monday here in Florida, police, local police, sheriffs joining federal immigration enforcement operations with a target of at least 800 illegal immigrants. And though they're saying these are criminals and such, okay, great. Are they focusing on major criminals? Are they focusing on like the ones that have already been convicted of the crimes and then gathering them so that it's out? That's where the question is. But really where the true battle is happening is that a federal judge entered not one, but two clear and direct orders stopping enforcement of the Florida law, allowing local law enforcement join ICE in these raids. And the Attorney General's letter makes us gravely concerned that Floridians will continue to be arrested under this unconstitutional statute. And bottom line is, you have like the sheriff from Pinellas County saying, look, I'm bound. I took an oath to abide the law. And right now, the judge's order prevails. And then we have our attorney general here in Florida saying, nope, we're not going to abide. You continue to do it. We'll deal with it later. So this is where we're going to have the issues come up, because when you're having the state of Florida basically saying, we're doing what we're going to do. We're going to continue doing it until such time as somebody tells us we can no longer do it. But I'm absolutely shocked and dismayed that our attorney general is taking this hard stance that they're not going to follow what a judge ordered. And that seems to be the prevailing sentiment. And it was started it really was part of the last administration as well, basically saying, we don't care what the judiciary is saying, we're going to continue doing like the loan forgiveness, when the judiciary came back saying this is not part of the executive powers, it's solely in Congress. They didn't care. Or even on some of the issues relating to securing the border, and Biden's administration did not care. We have a slippery slope here, folks. When we have states that are saying, you know what, we're not going to follow what a judge says and we don't care until something finally comes about, that is a problem, because that puts chaos. And as I've stated before, you cannot have a democratic society without a strong, independent judicial system that actually is able to correct step things and also define. But we're going to move on from this, because we have been talking about a very heavy subject, and it is something that we're going to continue to follow, because we're not going to hear the end of it. Yes, we have Democrat senators now, more senators going down to El Salvador to talk with that alleged MS-13 gang member who was deported under the previous deportation orders. But you know what? We thought we could count him out. And yes, this is how we're doing the segue. The Democrats' tailspin is continuing. But you know who is now out in the public? Former President Joe Biden. It is unbelievable. As many problems as Trump has, the other party can't seem to take advantage. You'd think things couldn't get any worse for the Democrats after a March 11 NBC News survey found only 27% of Americans had a positive view of the party. It's their lowest rating ever. But yet, here they go. They continue to beat this drum. They continue to go to such extremes and focus on an extreme and not looking at what caused this huge pendulum switch for voters who voted for Biden in 2020. leave and go to Trump. And that's really where it is. It's like you got to look at it going, what the hell, people? Do you not get it? What you were selling, the goods you were selling that ended up being sold, because let's face it, Biden, when he was running 2020, saying he was a moderate, he believed in working together, and he was supposed to be the president of unity, not disunity. And then he ended up going on this extreme progressive agenda, railroading what we, the people, really wanted or needed. And yet here we go again. The Democrats seem to still go down the beaten path, following AOC and Bernie Sanders, banging the drums of extremism and ignoring what we, the people, are most focused on. What we, the people, when sitting at the kitchen table, are talking about and saying, this is what is affecting us. But Joe Biden, he shuffled out onto a stage in Chicago. Go, Joe, in his little way of shuffling and his mumbling. And I'm sorry, I just can't imagine what would be so enthralling about a conversation with Joe. But if Joe is good and he's angry, then you'll have some emotion. But he wasn't in Chicago, and he is attacking his successor, which, to be fair, Trump is constantly bashing Joe Biden, so why not? So now we have Joe Biden out there giving some punches to Trump before an audience, advocating for the disabled. And the party knows Mr. Biden is a liability. Former President Biden is still an extreme liability for the Democratic Party, because you don't know how he's going to act. And also because he still has the specter of that fateful debate night last year. But, Biden is telling the Democratic Party, hey, I'm available. I'll campaign with you. I'll help with the midterm elections. And there are crickets, because nobody wants Joe on the stage. And not to be outdone, Biden's out there and he's getting paid. Don't think that, yes, he is being paid, which good for him. He's, this is something that past presidents are able to do. They get paid to go and speak. But not to be outdone, Al Gore, former President Al Gore, under the Clinton years, which, oh, by the way, do you remember that administration had the highest deportation rate? They had over 12 million deportations during their 8-year terms. But Al Gore jumped into the action Monday at a San Francisco climate conference, professing that he understands very well why it is wrong to compare Adolf Hitler's Third Reich to any other movement, which he was referring to the MAGA movement. And it was uniquely evil, full stop. Except he couldn't stop himself. Then he went on the tirade of how Trump and MAGA are very much the same as Hitler. This did not work the last time. It did not work in November. It did not work in the 2024 presidential campaign. People are not stupid. As much as you wish to think that we are, we the people know better, and we're not taking the Hitler analogies or metaphors. So for those of you who are wondering what the hell happened to the Democratic Party, this is what happened. The Democratic Party is solely concentrating on one thing, and that is, we hate Trump. We're going to bash Trump. We're going to show how evil he is. Guess what, guys? He won the damn election. It's time to maybe focus in on what is important to the average American. The Democratic Party once was the party for labor, for the workers. Guess what? No more. They're all on the Republican or the MAGA side, or independents. And at least with Al Gore, he did attack Republicans as a whole. He was inferring the MAGA unit. He did not focus just on Trump. But then you got to look at what is happening on the Democratic National Committee when you had the vice chairman, 25-year-old David Hogg. He was elected to try to bring in the younger people, because that younger population, that Generation Z, were really much are adhering more to the conservativeness. They were following not necessarily MAGA, but they were finding that they fall more in line with conservatives and were voting more for Trump and such. That here you had David Hogg, who is an anti-gun activist, threatening to spend $20 million to defeat older incumbents in Congress. Yes, this is what the DNC has come to. That Mr. Hogg stated that it's out with the ineffective and in with the effective, and that he had named himself the judge, the jury, and executioner for Democratic House members insufficiently left-wing. This is not the way to win the midterm elections. This is not the way to inure yourself to a population as a whole. Because remember, not everybody's in that 20% or even less that they are extreme progressiveness. And I mean, when you have AOC, when you have Bernie Sanders fighting the oligarchy on their roadshow, yeah, they're getting tens of thousands of people to their rallies. Good for them. They were at Coachella talking. But you know what? They're talking to their base. And the problem is that base is not reflective of the 70%, the 60, 70, 80% of us that are saying we're looking at our grocery bills. We're looking at our children, whether they will be able to buy real estate. We're looking at how are we going to get out of this inordinate debt that people are out, because unlike any other era we have had in the past 40 years, more and more people depending on credit cards to get by. That is an issue. You know what? I would love to see Bernie Sanders reach out to Trump and actually get a bill together, co-author a bill about capping credit card interest rates that are now upwards of 30% plus, some 33%, and capping at 10%. Because remember, Trump did run on that, and Bernie even said, hey, I agree with that. So why not do that? Why not show that you can take what are the issues that are most pressing for the average American, not the elite liberal sector, the average American, and why not come up with co-authored bills like that of which has been done during the Clinton administration, during the George W. Bush administration, even during the Ronald Reagan administrations. Let's get back to common sense, not neophyte, fear-mongering, you're Hitler, because guess what then? You're not going to get anywhere, and you're not going to move the needle. And eventually what you're going to see is that what was once a Democratic Party no longer existing. And I would say it's coming close to that end now. I am Alina González Dockery. I want to thank you for joining me for another episode of We the People. And I look forward to seeing you all back here next week, and wishing you all a good night and a great weekend.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.